So signs the third eye is opening, the spirit senses are activating, and why it is happening. This will be our topic today. Now, before we dive into this in too much detail, we need to have a brief discussion about the woo culture. And these are the types of folks who will undermine everything that we're about to discuss. And this will be done by folks who take much pride in being the skeptic. So in this case, in woo culture, these are the proud skeptics who worship at the altar of scientific rationalism. Why does this occur? This occurs because of the need of the identity to stabilize itself, its foundation upon the knowns. The need to be a repository and distributor of the knowns. So these types of mindsets only want to use what can be explained now, and usually have a very difficult time embracing the unknown. If you fall into this category, we want to do our best to suspend disbelief so that we can actually progress in an honest and open-minded way. All belief we want to suspend, and all disbelief we want to suspend, so that we can have an amorphous mind that can shift and change and actually perceive with sincerity and honesty the perceptions that are coming through. This is really, really important to the topic of spirit sense activation and the opening of the third eye. So let's get into this a little bit. Why is the third eye opening? Why are the spirit senses starting to activate? This happens at different stages along the path for different people. So the first thing we want to look at is an increase in energy and an elevation in vibration, an elevation in frequency. When we begin the practice, we start by consolidating our awareness at many different layers. And this leads to far less wasted energy. And this is critical. Normally, day-to-day life, the mind's jumping around, paying attention to all kinds of things. The emotions are slave to the meanderings of the mind. The mind is slave to the meanderings of the emotions. And this draws an incredible amount of energy from us. Also, the body is riddled with tension and contrast. We are in contrast with ourselves so much in the beginning. The thinking is in contrast with the feeling. The feeling is in contrast with the action. And all of these are in so many ways in contrast with each other. Every now and again, everything lines up for one reason or another, and then we break apart into conflicting systems. So we are fighting ourselves, and this is consuming a huge amount of energy. So in the beginning, let's say we take Franz Bardon's initiation into Hermetics, we look at step 1 mental training. You learn to concentrate the mind. So you start to focus, and all of the extraneous wasted mental energy starts to stop, because the mind is focused on one thing. And when the mind focuses on one thing, there's a massive release in the nervous system and the body tissue. And now not only is the mind focused, the mind starts to calm, the body starts to calm, and there's a huge amount of energy that's liberated. So we have less wasted energy. Now, what is that energy that's liberated from? It's liberated from the habits of unknown and subconscious movement. So we have concentration in the physical awareness, right? Concentration with the vital breathing, and What this does is it starts to build physical energy. So the physical practices would be things like your physical exercises even, that you start to build some physical vitality. You start to build the vital breathing, and you're learning how the body can stretch, and you're starting to enliven the tissue and also the coherence of the tissue so that it's able to generate more and more energy. You're taking into account what you're eating and how you're eating. You're taking into account what you're drinking and how you're drinking. And this is right at the beginning of step 1. So we're starting to elevate our habits to create a healthier being that can produce more energy. The alignment of the vital, the astral, the mental, the action, the feeling, and the thinking, this starts to come online. And because we are aligned, we now are in greater coherence. This creates positive synergistic waves that come together and amplify instead of detract from each other. So you stop being in conflict with yourself. Boom, more energy. This is the alignment aspect of things. And as you start to go through the initiation process, your soul mirror work starts to take effect. So you are developing deep understanding of yourself through exploring the soul mirror. And through this, you're starting to forgive your past transgressions, and your understanding and compassion and tenderness with yourself starts to grow because of this understanding. This understanding allows for a liberation of the matrices that have bound the emotional traumas and guilts and all the mental view associated with that, and self-identity that's associated with these issues. That's all. They've all been bound together and created their own matrices over time. So because of the understanding, this allows for those matrices to soften, and that energy can move. Because that energy can move, the identity and view consolidation that's occurred there is able to move as well. So we're able to evolve how we see ourselves. And forgiving oneself is a huge, huge aspect of this. Forgiving others, a huge, huge aspect of this. It has nothing to do with allowing transgressions to occur again. It has to do with not holding on to all of that stagnant energy. So bang, more energy is liberated due to release, right? Not only is more energy liberated, but more is being created because the tissue opens, it's free, and that freedom allows for movement within that tissue, and it's that movement that creates energy, basically, at the course vital level. So because we are not in contrast with ourselves anymore, because we've forgiven ourselves and others, we've started to balance our soul through the elements. We're starting to understand the elements and feel the elements at play. So now they're starting to be able to move. This again is freeing more energy because it's starting to allow for equilibrium to arise. The higher vibration, the higher frequency of feeling, of thinking, of action, this starts to free the mind and open the heart. And these are two incredible stores of energy, big fields, lots of energy. So the mind is being freed because we no longer are engaging in action that we are in contrast to. We're no longer engaging in thought we are in contrast to. We're no longer engaging in feeling that we're in contrast to. As we begin to act in a higher vibration, feel at a higher vibration, and think at a higher vibration, these more expansive qualities, this inhibits us from engaging in actions that we know are bad, that we'll have to ruminate on, that will consume energy, guilt, all these things. Engage in feelings that we'll ruminate on and try to rationalize how we are right in those actions, in those feelings, in those thoughts and interactions. So once again, massive synergistic wave accumulation and massive alignment of the bodies and less contrast to ourselves. Energy goes up, freedom goes up, sovereignty improves. The Akashic sovereignty that we've developed through all the energy work and learning how to engage with the elements from the Akasha, right? And the magical equilibrium that's arisen from this. I was going to say arose, arisen from this. This is a huge platform because that Akasha, that starts to open the crown and in an incredibly powerful way, defabricate the matrices that have bound all these traumas and have bound the centers. The energy centers, say the chakras, the joint centers, have bound the traumas there, have bound these habits there, and have inhibited energy from flowing from the universe, from infinity through the Akasha, and to expand and be born through those centers, in through the body and out through the physical field, through the emanation of this entity, okay? The energetic emanations at their different layers of density. So all this has led to massive release of stagnant energy, less fighting of oneself, synergistic, coherent waves of cumulative power and focus and energy. And this is the elevation of quantity and quality of energy. Okay, so this is all prerequisite, and this is why this energy might start, and many other reasons why more energy will be freed, which means it can move. More energy is being created because we're at a higher vibration. Now, because there's more energy quantitatively and higher frequency qualitatively, things are now moving. And where things get stuck is where we will start to notice these the beginnings of this third eye opening and the sense, spirit sense activation. Again, because of stagnancy. So, because we've done all this prerequisite work, hopefully there is less stagnancy. Because signs, say like the incredible pressure people feel in the third eye or in the center of the head, that like monadic center, this is, it can be quite painful, like kind of like there's an axe splitting your head in half, right? And this is not opening, this is blockage. It hasn't opened. All of that elevated energy and quantitative increase in energy is getting stuck in the center of your head, is getting stuck in your third eye. So you feel this pressure. And we want to make super sure that we don't pedestalize this as a sign that the third eye is opening, because then we will hold on to what actually needs to release so that energy can flow through. This is like a dam bursting. And if we are inhibiting that energy from moving because we're pedestalizing the pressure, then that pressure is going to build. And when it bursts through, when it breaks, well, either you'll be able to deal with it or you won't. So, something we want to consider. Okay, so we have increases of pressure. Now, heightened with the sense gate activation, at the physical layer, we have a heightened sensitivity of all of the sense gates. And from the spirit sense level, you'll start to have information come through that you wouldn't have perceived otherwise. Starting with the sensitivity, this can feel like, because things are starting to open with all the Akashic work, all the release work, like bruised, like you're raw, right? Scraped raw. Kind of like life is flowing into areas that have been long dead. Sort of like if you fall asleep on your arm, when the blood comes back, it hurts a lot. You can feel this in all of the senses simultaneously, and it can be quite painful. At the same time, the pain and pleasure are both heightened because you're increasing the sensory awareness itself. There's more energy to be aware of, and there's higher quality there, so that you're able to hopefully handle that. At the same time, both pain and pleasure ride the same sensory inputs. So we want to be aware of that so we don't get waylaid either on the pleasure side or the pain side. Okay, now the order, the reason the third eye is often talked about with such reverence and excitement is because many will assume that it is the last one to open and then the crown opens. But we all have different stagnancies within us. We all have blockages in more or less strength at different centers. So for some, this area might be quite open, but you might have blockages in centers lower down. And so what you have to work through is individual, and the order that the centers open is fairly individual as well. So we want to have some familiarity with all this so that depending on where we're at and what's happening with us on our own individual path and individual development, we're able to work with this stuff. And that's why the prerequisite training, going through an actual initiation, can be so helpful, because it gives us the tools, not only cognitively and sort of physically, energetically through the skills, but through direct transmission. You actually have been tuned to the different layers of vibration, so you're able to act with a little bit more knowledge about what's going on. Okay, which allows us, of course, to progress more thoroughly through the prerequisite work. So the ennobling of the soul is different for everybody, and that is a big part of what's happening. Okay, now the last part of this is looking at the cool stuff. When all the senses, the spirit senses, start to activate, we become aware of ambient energy in the environment. Vitally, astrally, mentally, and spiritually, we become aware of this ambient energy. And this is through all of the spirit senses. Different people will have different spirit senses more tuned than others. So maybe you begin to hear things that most people don't hear. Maybe you see things most people don't see. You smell things most people don't smell. Maybe you start to know things claircognitively. Whatever sense you happen to work through more. And these would be things like, you walk into a forest and you start to see the life force of the trees. You might start to see these waves of energy rolling from the roots up through the crown. And maybe you hear a hum of that life force. Maybe you walk in and you feel the density of the air get thicker, and you feel that energy permeating through the skin, through the pores. Maybe you smell the aliveness of that air. This is at an introductory level, working with the life force. There's so many different options. Maybe you walk in and you start to receive insight and knowledge about that forest through the life force. It starts to appear in your mind's eye. This would be, examples of things that are going on. Now, other experiences you might have are things like phase shifting. You look at, again, you walk into the forest and suddenly what was solid is moving in waves. You watch a wave roll in to the shore, right? And suddenly the ground, it hits the shore, but the ground is still the wave. And what is solid is in motion. And you start to see this. It's a very peculiar experience. And all of these experiences are noted and acknowledged, free from disbelief and free from prideful attachment, right? Another common one was like dreams and wakefulness start to blur. You start to dream in a way that it's hard to explain. It's different. It might not be lucid dreaming yet, but you might dream things that are occurring in the body in, cinematic ways. You might dream somewhat prophetically. You dream what happens the next day prior to it happening, and you get all these deja vu moments. There's very interesting things that can occur. So there's all kinds of fun experiences, and we want to be wary of how we pursue these experiences. So when you start to become aware of what's happening in the mind of others, in the emotions of others, in the physicality of others, we want to be very careful in how we might go about expressing that. Maybe not even express it at all, and probably almost entirely not express it at all is a safe bet there. Who does it serve to unravel somebody to their face? Usually just the person doing the talking, the person who's seeing all the crazy stuff, who's prideful in all the special intricacies that can be seen. It's usually done by most practicers so that they can go, hey, look at me, I'm special, and here's why. If you go deeper, it's the little kid inside that person. The 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old who was socially awkward, who never really felt like they fit in, going, please accept me. Please. I can be here, right? That's usually, if you go deeper, what's behind a lot of that stuff. So you have this information that comes in, and simply acknowledge it, suspend disbelief, and also suspend the need to attach to it, and to attach it to where it came from. As we've mentioned in previous videos, non-judgment is the key here. Absolutely critical to all this stuff unfolding in a positive manner. Okay. Okay, so I hope you found this helpful. We were looking a little bit at the signs at the end there, experiences you might have when the sense gates are opening. Looking a little bit at the pressures one might feel and the pains one might go through, and looking at why a lot of this stuff starts to occur as you progress through the spiritual path. And we started this video looking at sort of woo-woo culture and growing hopefully a little bit beyond that and working with the suspension of disbelief, the suspension of the need to attach, the need to identify, and simply allow the experience to unfold, acknowledge the experience as it unfolds, and do this across time, and answers and questions as well will start to reveal themselves through your insights. Okay, for training, please check out the website. There are courses as well as retreat information there. And I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.